Hello, lovelies, and welcome to another episode of Taking Time to Heal. So, as usual, I hope you have got your little sacred space ready. I hope you have informed others in the house that you're not to be disturbed, because this is time just for you. So maybe light a candle, get your journal out, ready to make some notes. And I should say, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Holly. I'm a holistic health coach specializing in Ayurveda. I'm a Reiki master, a meditation teacher, amongst many other things. But it is gorgeous to have you here if this is the first time you found us. So, at the moment, we are diving into the Huna principles, which are a beautiful set of guidance that comes from, we believe, we're not sure, we believe comes from Hawaii. We're not sure how much of this is ancient wisdom, how much of this has been merged with new schools of thought. But whatever your opinion on that, I invite you to notice that there is so much that we can learn from these Huna principles, and they offer so much guidance in terms of how we can receive more from our experience of being human, of being alive, of being here in this existence. So with that in mind, we're going to the next Huna principle, which is Aloha. Many of you may feel like you've heard that word before, right? It's a word, it's one of the beautiful things that I've discovered about the Hawaiian language is they have a bit like Sanskrit, where there's like a word can represent many different things, and the words are often held with deep meaning in the actual constructs of the word itself. That could be a whole other topic. But for now, this roughly translates to love is to be happy with. To love is to be happy with. And I've heard a few different versions of this, of how people have taken meaning from this. And I hope to offer you some of all of those today, but also give you a really good understanding of how I have taken this on board from my perspective. It's one of the most beautiful things, right, about being human and finding different teachers and coaches and support and all of that, is you can learn the same thing but through different teachers who will put their own lens on it, their own perspective on it, their own experience to it. And it's one of the reasons I love to continue to learn about same subjects but from many different people. You know, it's one of the reasons I love to explore different religions and spiritual practices, because I think many times they're talking about the same things but with a different lens. And I don't know about you, but I think it is really healthy to not get too locked in to one way of thinking or believing, because that begins to limit us. And the more we can allow ourselves to expand our perspectives and hear new versions of things that we feel we know, right? Often there will be something there that you'll take away and you'll think, oh, that really landed, that really made sense in a way that it hadn't done with another path or another teacher or another coach. So, Aloha. To love is to be happy with. And for me, this makes me think about maybe a few different things. But firstly, I want to highlight this idea that contained within this is to love is to be happy with. This reminds me of the huge medicine that we receive from gratitude and our gratitude practices, and allowing ourselves to really connect into that which we appreciate. But I feel like we need to take that further with this. And like I say, the word that comes through for me is appreciation. To love is to be happy with is about really acknowledging the fact that we have so much in our lives available to us in all different areas of life that we get to appreciate. And when we start appreciating things, we start to put more energy, more focus, more attention, more love towards that thing, which in my experience, and I'm sure you've experienced the same, actually leads to more things to appreciate in that area. And so this kind of leads me on to another concept that I think is really important for us to consider as we think about this Huna principle, which is you are in relationship with everything in your life. So, the obvious ones are you're in relationship perhaps with a partner or a friend or a parent or a child. You have those bonds, and all of them are slightly different, right? All of them are slightly different. You can love all of these people, but perhaps you love them for different reasons, and they have different qualities that you really appreciate. They offer you something that is unique to them, and there's something really beautiful about that. But the truth is, we're also in relationship with lots of other things and situations and circumstances. So, for example, you will have a relationship with your job. So what do I mean by that? Well, a relationship is this exchange of energy, right? And we often find that, the universe will mirror back that which we are giving to that thing. So, for example, if you have a job, not talking from personal experience here or anything, but if you have a job that you have decided this relationship is toxic or unhealthy or too demanding or not what you want, what you begin to find is the energy you put towards it becomes this kind of resentment, this frustration, and the more you put that energy into that thing, the more of that thing you tend to receive back. Now we see this in other areas. Money is another great example. We all have a relationship with money, and again, what you are putting into that relationship is the same as what you will receive. So, I find this interesting. When I look back, I had to do a lot of money healing work over the years. And one of the things that I observed quite quickly when I was trying to change my relationship with money and allow room for more to come in, I had to initially be really honest about what was the part I was playing in that relationship. So was I being caring and attentive? Was I being loving and kind? Or was it coming from a place of, I look back, the early years of my money relationship, and there was a lot of wanting with not a lot of willingness to show up for the money. I wasn't particularly willing to track it. I didn't want to look at my spending. I didn't want to consider how I was responsible for what I was bringing in. Those things I didn't want a relationship with money. And because I didn't want a relationship with money, money didn't want a relationship with me. And it became this kind of toxic relationship. Similar thing with my health, right? I was, very keen for my body to work. I was very demanding of my body and my health. I wanted it to give me energy. I wanted it to function accordingly. I didn't want it to be inflamed. I didn't want to experience pain. I didn't want discomfort. Yet when I looked at the relationship that I had with that, I wasn't showing up fully. I was not operating as someone that was like an equal relationship, a healthy relationship of give and take, that giving and receiving. And so I wanted to invite you to consider this concept of being in relationship with all things, and whether the relationships you're currently focusing on. So when I say relationships, is that the relationship with your career? Is that the relationship with your husband? Is that the relationship with your children? Is that the relationship with your health, with your happiness, with your peace, with that kind of sense of getting to know yourself even? Are you in relationship, a healthy relationship with yourself? And so I wanted to invite you to really start thinking about this today. And we can get really practical with it, right? Many of us have seen what is called the life coaching wheel, or I think it's got many different names, but it looks basically like a big pie chart that's divided up into sections. And the idea is we use this framework of a big circle that's divided into sections to review different elements of our life. So this is what I wanted to invite you to do today, is first of all, to draw out a big circle. I can do it with you if you wish. Let's try that. Oh, that's good. I've got a big piece of paper here. So, I hope your circle looks better than mine. I don't know if you can see it. There we go. And then we divide this circle up into the things that matter the most to us. So, for example, in my circle, I might have health. That is a big thing for me. I've got chronic conditions. It's always like one of the first things I think about. In there, I will also have family. 3 kids, gorgeous husband, and my beautiful doggy. They need to be considered, right? They need to be considered. They bring me a lot of joy, a lot of happiness. And yeah, it's a real honor and privilege to have them in my life. Then we have, for me, I'm going to put my business, because it's a big part of my life, right? I'm here to make a difference. I genuinely want to make a difference to people's lives. So it's got to be something that I have in my mind as something that I'm in relationship with. So I invite you to do the same initially. And I've put 8 sections here. You can have more than that, you can have less than that. My spiritual practice is a big one that gets a section all to itself. Now, what I will say as we're going through this is it's really, really normal to, as we're filling this in, to think, happy with that bit, not happy with that bit, happier with that bit, not happy with that bit, or that bit could have some improvement, right? It's pretty much impossible to have all of those areas of your life operating perfectly, beautifully at all times, right? There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be things that we want to improve. And as we change and evolve and as we grow, we look at those areas with different eyes. We look at those areas with different priorities, with different things that matter to us. And so even the labels of what's on your circle might be different to the labels that are on my circle. And that might change over the course of the years. In some cases, even over the months, depending on how quickly we're changing, how quickly we're evolving, what's happening for us at that time. So once you've got your kind of life circle and you've highlighted the main things that matter the most to you, what I would say on that is be careful not to put on the circle things that you think should matter. So, you know, society, parents, cultures, all of those things that influence us, they can start to cloud our judgment around what actually is important, what actually matters to us. And I always think, I think a good question to kind of reconfirm these kind of top values for yourself is to consider, if that thing went away tomorrow, how would I feel about that? So say, for example, I'm looking at my circle. If my health went away tomorrow, I probably would be really gutted, right? That's something that's going to really impact my life. It's going to really impact what I can do with my life. It's going to impact the experiences that I might be able to experience later on and all of my plans and that side of things. So health for me is really fundamental. Same with family, right? If my family disappeared tomorrow, I'm just going to be devastated. Like, if I'm honest, out of everything on that wheel, that's probably the one thing that I'm not sure how I would recover from, if I'm really, really honest. Hopefully, touch wood, I never have to deal with that. That's interesting, right? I'm just remembering, like, when my first marriage broke down. That was my sense. It felt like it was a real ending of family. And I think it was one of the reasons I struggled with it so much at that time, the amount of grief I experienced. But I still have my family. My family's good. Spirituality. So if my spirituality and sense of connection to that which is bigger than us, if that disappeared tomorrow, I think I think that would equally be devastating to me, depending on how it disappeared. And I can't imagine a situation where that would happen for me. I can see where it might evolve and change and grow, but disappearing, that would be interesting. So as you do that, as you go around your circle, it's that just double checking in with yourself. Would I be really gutted? Would this really impact me if I lost that thing, if I didn't have that thing? And I'll give you an example here of where we can get caught up in societal expectations. I can remember, so I initially bought my first house. I'm trying to think how old I was. I think I was in early 20s. I bought, with my then husband, our first house. And after the marriage broke down and we had to go through the divorce process and that side of things, without getting into too much detail around that, there was this big financial impact that hit me. And because that financial impact, it meant that we had to sell that house. The money that came in from that house wasn't what we expected. And I personally, as that single person, then wasn't in the position to buy at that time. And it became this real kind of hang up for me. It became this really big thing of, I felt like I'd taken a step backwards and I wanted to get back on the property ladder. And then, you know, life continues, life evolves, and then my now husband and I bought our house. And I remember about a few months in, like, this had been a real consuming thought for me for quite a long time. Got to get back on the property ladder. Got to get back on the property ladder. It was like this real kind of goal, and it was something I'd been working towards for a while. And I remember, like, 3 months after having our house, I think we'd had some problems. I think there was an issue with the roof. There were some expenses we weren't expecting. And I remember saying to my husband, "Oh, do you remember how lovely it was to just be able to ring a landlord?" And so, if I'm honest, when I think about that situation now, and yeah, I do own my house, but if I'm really honest with myself, if, you know, it's in some ways it's convenient having our property, in other ways it really isn't. You know, it really isn't, in terms of there's always maintenance to do. It's a bit of a tie to one particular area. You know, we're thinking about going traveling in a few years, and you know, one of the questions that keeps coming up is, what do we do with the house? Do we rent it out? Do we sell it? What would, you know, and it really allowed me to see just how much that kind of societal expectation or that societal standard of success had fed into this goal for me. And actually, when I was really honest with myself, I wasn't that bothered about owning property. And actually, when you look at it as an investment strategy, there's many other ways to grow your money in ways that are often faster and more sustainable long term. But, you know, it's been sold to many of us, right? If you want to, especially as a financial strategy, if, you know, you want to have money later in life, if you want to leave inheritance to your children, those sort of things, you know, I was always told, first thing you got to do is buy property. Buy property. It's the best thing you can do, best investment you can make. And although some of that is true in some respect, I wouldn't say it's the only way. There's lots of other ways. But the problem is, when we're caught into one way of thinking, that's often all we see. So the reason I share that is because it's not unusual, right, for us to have these goals or parts of our life that we think should be more important than actually, when we're honest with ourselves, actually are. So if you want to get the most out of this is a really good opportunity to get really honest with yourself around what actually matters to you, what gives you that quality of life, what actually allows you to get the most from this experience of being human, being alive. So once you have your circle, and you've labeled the different parts of what matters most to you, it's a really good idea to think about, okay, if to love is to be happy with, giving these different areas of life a score. Now that sounds really oversimplistic, but actually we're just using it as a way to know where we need to hone our focus. So say, for example, how am I happy? Am I happy with family right now? And do you know what? I'm going to break that down, because to me that encompasses too much. So I have my relationship with my husband. I have, and do you know what? I personally would probably put my kids all separate on here, because I've got individual relationships with all of them, because they're different people, right? They're different people. They need different things. They like different things. They see things differently. So I'm going to put them all down as individuals, because to me, they're all super important. And so what I might do is then go, okay, so how would I score my relationship, or how happy I am with that relationship? So let's say health. Let's look at health. So health at the moment, I'd probably give that about, honestly, probably about a 7 right now. And the reason it's a 7 and not higher is because I'm just coming off the back of a virus, and I'm still not feeling 100%. My energy is still low. I can feel my brain is still a bit foggy. So generally, I would say I'm about a 7 in terms of happiness with my health right now. And do this as you go around your circle. And then what I invite you to see is, what are the ones where the score is not where you want it to be, and it feels like the most important. So we need to be careful not to try to change too much, too quickly, too soon, and basically overwhelm ourselves with too much. But for this example, I'm going to be focusing on health. Okay, so when I think about what is the part I'm playing in relationship to my health, who is the role, what is the role I'm taking on in terms of my health? Am I showing up for that relationship? Honestly, so context wise here, we're in Pitta season. Ayurvedically speaking, Pitta season is the energy of fire and water, and during this time is often where we can find ourselves in more of those kind of fiery emotions. And some of those fiery qualities and fiery emotions are brilliant, right? They often allow us to be focused. They allow us to plow forward. They allow us to make things happen and transform and start to create results in our life, right? It's often a time where there's a lot of action. There's a lot of action going on. And in many ways, I am so much better at managing this than I used to be. I look back to 10 years ago, and I would just allow that adrenaline to take me over, and just work, do, work, do. And that would just probably be most of my life, let alone the summer season. Whereas these days, I'm far more conscious of that, right? I'm far more conscious of my energy. I'm far more conscious of what I need as opposed to what I need to do. Two very different things. But when I look, there are things that I have been letting slip. I've noticed that my meal times have become less regular recently. And this is the funny thing about pitta season, right? When we have a lot of pitta energy in our body, generally we've got a very strong appetite. Our digestive system is often a bit faster. Our metabolism is speeding up in pitta season. But when we go into excess of this fire energy, what we can find is what we are doing, something we're trying to achieve, something we're working towards, becomes very urgent. So urgent that we start to let our needs slip. So, like say with my meal times not being as regular, it hasn't been because I haven't been hungry. It's been, oh, I'll just finish this. An hour later, I might emerge, right? Rather than being really disciplined with myself and go, no, come on, go take half an hour, Holly. Go have something to eat. Go sit in the sunshine. Allow yourself to rest for a moment and then come back feeling refueled and refreshed. So for me, if I'm really honest, when it comes to my health, in terms of the relationship I've been having with it right now, it's been almost like inconvenient is the word I want to use. It's felt inconvenient to consider, especially my physical needs. Less so like my mental, emotional, and spiritual needs at the moment. They're feeling really good. But my physical needs, I can see I've been neglecting them just a little bit. And so I need to honor that. If I want this relationship to improve, I have to consider, who do I want to be in that relationship? So who do I want to be in regards to my physical needs? Well, the word that comes through for me is I want to show up as the kind of parent for my body. I want it to know that someone's got its back, that it's being taken care of, that it's not going to get neglected, it's not going to get dismissed or made to feel like its needs aren't important. So for me, I want to really bring in that kind of parent archetype for my physical health. And as I do for my children, we make sure their needs are met, make sure they've got everything they need in terms of like food, water, shelter, hopefully emotional support and mental support as well. But so when I'm honest with myself, I want to really think about how I can start embodying more of that parent archetype towards my physical well-being. Okay, so as a parent, what do I do? Well, I'm organized, right? Over the years, I've had to juggle many things whilst being a parent, and one of the things that I think many of us figure out quite quickly is if you don't get organized, you start to feel like you're sinking, or life's running away from you, or nothing's getting done that needs to get done. So actually, perhaps I need to start installing a routine. So a routine around eating times, get back into that. And initially, as I'm transitioning back into more routine ways of eating, then I might want to just start with a couple of meals a day at particular times, or maybe just one meal a day if you're not even there yet. There's no right or wrong. It's literally about starting where you're at. So if I can commit to myself that, I'm going to have lunch every day at 1 o'clock, and that's non-negotiable. When I'm scheduling stuff in my diary, that's what's going to happen. I'll block it out in my calendar so I can't book in client calls during that time, or I can't arrange events during that time. Do you see what I mean? So I'm breaking this down into something that's really super manageable to do, yet it's going to be highly effective. So that's one way that we can do this really practically from like a goal setting perspective. If you're not sure, right? Say, for example, your career. Something's just feeling a bit off, it's not particularly lighting you up anymore, you're not sure what's going on. Then this can be a really lovely opportunity to explore this through more kind of abstract journaling practices. So if there's an area of my life where it's not feeling good and I can't really figure out why, and I can't figure out what needs to change from a really logical, practical perspective, then what I often do is I will write a letter to that thing, and then I will write a response from that thing. So, for example, I might write, "Dear career, I'm not sure what's going on with us at the moment, but this isn't feeling good for me. I'm feeling like I'm not seeing a return in everything I'm offering." Just using this as an example, thinking back to those days in my career in the corporate world. And then I might say, so what do you see as the problem being from your perspective? And then I'll write back, "Dear Holly, I agree. I've noticed the same over the years. I've noticed that your enthusiasm has dwindled. I've noticed that your effort isn't as high. I've noticed that you now feel resentful for tasks that you used to appreciate. Perhaps we need to figure out why that is." And I will continue this back and forth, uncovering deeper and deeper layers of what's going on with this relationship. This sounds like a bit of a woo-woo thing, really, I suppose, but actually it's about uncovering that which is in the subconscious. Often it's the subconscious, as you know by now, that dictates our behaviors, dictates the mood, dictates the energy we take into things. So through this practice of making these things conscious, by aligning our intentions to that which really matters, and also offering that energy of appreciation. So as we think about that last exercise of writing a letter to that thing in which you're in relationship with, another lovely exercise to consider on top of that is to ask yourself that if you wanted to show this area of your life some love and appreciation, what would you be doing differently? So if I really appreciated my career right now, if I was really grateful for it and really engaged with all that it has given me and all that it has allowed me to do, be, see, have, become, how might I be operating differently? And this can be another great question to kind of lift that veil of resentment, lift those veils of frustration. And then once you've started looking at that, you can also follow it up with, and what stopped me doing that before? Now, sometimes it's just, complacency, right? Often we will become complacent unless we consciously choose, consciously make decisions, consciously set goals, consciously have intentions. We tend to get complacent. We'll just allow life to throw us around and go into the victim archetype of, oh, poor me, I've got no control. Whereas actually, when we're being conscious of these sort of things, when we're allowing ourselves to really consider, really take responsibility for these relationships that we are in our life, then we can actually start choosing something else, choosing how we want to show up differently in regards to that. And, there might be also in that, let's use the career as an example, there might also be something where you need to be just really honest with yourself. So I know for me that my enthusiasm towards my career, which had always been particularly good, particularly high, towards the end, it just dwindled. And it was because my energy wasn't there, my attention wasn't there. I couldn't see myself in that career longer term. There were too many other things I wanted to do. But it wasn't until I gave myself permission to really accept that, to go, oh yeah, that's what's happened here. And I explored it from the point of view of, okay, so do I want to keep trying? Do I want to put more energy into this? Do I want to put my attention here? Do I want to put my focus here? And listening to that real heartfelt response of, no, that's not where you want to be. That's not where you desire to go. And once I allowed myself to acknowledge that, then I could be really thoughtful, really the word I want to use is, it gave me permission to plan the exit. So once I could acknowledge, oh yeah, I don't want to be in that career. Of course I'm not feeling engaged. Then it gave me the opportunity to go, okay, so what's that going to look like? What might that mean in terms of time scale, in terms of things I need to be doing in my spare time, in terms of what support I need to get in place to help me through that transition. I know during that time I worked with lots of different coaches and therapists because I was overcoming block after block after block after block, because there was the insecurity, and then there was the financial concerns, and then there was, there's all of these different things that can come up for us as we're negotiating change, even when we really want it. So I hope this has given you a few little tools to start thinking about, okay, to love is to be happy with. And that's about not just taking the time to be grateful. I think that is a massive part of this, taking the time to be grateful, acknowledging how lucky we are, but also taking the time to consciously choose the life we're creating. And from that place, you begin to realize just how powerful you are. And you also get to see how beautiful your relationships can be. And when I say relationships, I don't just mean with humans. The relationship I have with my business is a beautiful one. Me and the spirit of my business spend time together every month, planning out what we're going to do. I spend time visioning the future, thinking about what that means. What am I working towards? I spend a lot of time giving it love and attention and appreciation. And the more I do that, the more I see that area of my life improving. And so I wanted to invite you to consider this today. Do some journaling on this today, and perhaps use some of the tools and exercises I've shared today. And I would love to hear, has this resonated? And what is the one thing that you're going to start working on to improve a relationship in your life this week? Feel free to share below in the comments. And I just also want to say thank you so much for those of you that have left reviews, given ratings. It makes a massive difference in terms of how far the podcast reaches people. So if you have left a review or a rating, I just want to say a big thank you. I really do appreciate it. It makes a massive difference to me. And if you haven't but would like to, that would also mean the world. So thank you very much in advance if you plan on doing that. All right, lovelies. Just to mention, we have got some beautiful things coming up over the next month. And on my website under hollyboulet.com, you will find our latest events, latest programs, latest happenings inside the membership. So if you feel called to join in with any of that, we would love to see you there. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you next week for another episode. Take care.